What if the one wedding that never happened in Westeros is the one that could have saved a kingdom from burning? What if Lyanna Stark actually married Robert Baratheon, and the Song of Ice and Fire began with a feast, not a funeral? Let's explore how different the game might look if the wolf kept her promise to the stag. In the world we know, everything unravels in a single, reckless choice. Lyanna disappears with Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. Brandon Stark rides to King's Landing, demanding justice. Aerys answers with wildfire and madness. Brandon strangled, Rickard burned alive. From that pyre, Robert's rebellion rises. The trident runs red, the Targaryens fall, Elia and her children die in the sack of King's Landing, and years later, the War of the Five Kings tears the realm apart again. All of it seems vast, inevitable, the work of mad kings and proud lords, yet it hangs on one broken betrothal in a godswood. Now, shift the scene. The heart tree at Winterfell stands witness, not to a promise betrayed, but to vows fulfilled. Lyanna Stark takes Robert's hand. The crowned stag and the direwolf are bound before old gods and new. Rhaegar stays with Elia. There is no kidnapping, no frantic ride to the Red Keep, no chains tightening around Rickard's throat. In this timeline, the storm that drowns a dynasty never breaks at all. But if the realm is spared its great rebellion, what price does it pay instead? Ned would still stand beside his sister, watching Robert grin beneath a garland of winter roses. He knew that Robert's charm was a bright sword, beautiful and dangerous, and that his appetites ran ahead of his judgment. Yet with Lyanna as queen-in-waiting, nay, with Stark honor tied to Baratheon power, he must think differently about the court, the crown, and his own place in the game. That is why this video will not just trace a few pretty butterflies and call it done. We will walk, step by careful step, through how this one marriage reshapes alliances, succession, and even the long war in the dark. From the godswood of Winterfell to the Red Keep's shadowed corridors, from Lyanna's wedding night to the first snows of the long winter, we will track how Starks, Baratheons, Targaryens, and Lannisters all move when Lyanna wears the crowned stag, instead of vanishing into legend. Imagine a King Robert who never loses Lyanna, a Tywin Lannister whose daughter never becomes queen, a Rhaegar who lives to raise his children beneath a living dragon banner. Does that world avert disaster? Or only delay it? He realizes, perhaps too late, that saving hundreds of thousands from Robert's rebellion might quietly doom millions when the dead come south and no one is ready. Without the traumas that forged the few who dared to face the White Walkers, who will stand the Wall's last watch? So, stay with this timeline. The feast is about to begin, the music is playing, and somewhere in the crowd, the future is already listening. Into the Godswood. A different promise in Winterfell. The music fades behind stone and snow as you follow the quiet path into Winterfell's Godswood, where the real game is beginning. Beneath the red-leaved branches of the heart tree, Lyanna Stark stands with her cloak unfastened, breath misting in the cold air. Ned is beside her, hands folded, as if he can hold the whole world still by will alone. "Well, so it is done," she says, not a question. Ned watches the slow drip of sap like blood from the carved eyes. Lord Father is pleased. Robert as good as danced on the table when he heard. Lyanna snorts. Robert would dance on a table for a cask of ale, or a pretty girl. Am I to be one more? The words are sharp, but there is a tremor under them. He realizes it is not only fear of one man, but of a life she did not choose. "He's my friend," Ned answers too quickly. "He is generous, brave. He will be a good king one day." He knew that sounded thin even as he said it. Robert's laughter, his oaths, his easy promises, they were bright banners, not stone walls. "A good king does not forget what he swears," Lyanna murmurs. "You told me he has bastards already." "Boys will be boys," Ned says. Aon then hears his own words and almost winces. That is why he must wed, a true-born heir, a house to steady him. You. She looks up at the weirwood's face. And if he cannot be steadied? Ned has no answer. In another life, she might have run. In this one, she only wraps her arms around herself. "You said I should trust you," she whispers. "So I will. I accept him." Far back among the trees, Maester Luwin adjusts a raven on his arm, soft words sending black wings north and south. A guard in Stark colors, one whose cousin serves a southern lord, pretends not to listen as he notes every detail. Information is already leaving the godswood. It seems even the leaves are whispering. By nightfall, a bird will beat at the Maester's window in Storm's End. Another will flutter into the rookery above the Red Keep. A third will find Dragonstone's lonely tower. Allies and rivals alike will hear that the wolf has bowed its head to the stag. At Storm's End, Robert drains a cup and slams it down so hard the table jumps. "Did I not tell you, Lord Arryn?" he crows. "I'll have her yet. Lyanna Stark, my lady wife. The North and the Stormlands, one banner." Jon Arryn smiles, thin but fond. "A strong match, Robert. Lord Rickard is no fool." Stannis says nothing. He sits rigid, jaw clenched, watching his brother boast to the household knights. Robert speaks of hunting in the Wolfswood, of sons with Stark eyes and Baratheon strength. He does not speak of temper or of duty. Stannis counts ships and grain in his head, tracing what northern spears could mean against a mad king. And he knew that this betrothal is more than love. It is leverage. "Why will you at least try not to break this one, brother?" Stannis asks at last, voice dry as salt. A ripple of laughter passes around the hall. Robert only grins. In King's Landing, a barefoot boy with torn ears whispers to a plump man in silk. Varys listens, expression mild, as the words Stark and Baratheon and unity drift like smoke. In a different corner of the realm, a Lannister rider pauses at an inn to send a letter west, noting that the stag has chosen a wolf, not a lion. No one raises their voice, but the court is already shifting. Back in the godswood, the wind picks up. Lyanna reaches out, fingers brushing the deep-cut grooves of the weirwood's face. "Then, let it be done," she says. She does not feel the ravens taking flight, or hear the soft scrape of quills in smoky chambers far to the south. Ned does. He must. Because somewhere in his bones, he senses that this quiet promise is the first move in a far larger game. And once the first move is made, who truly controls the board? Aerys, Rhaegar, and the Targaryen problem, rebellion, averted? Far to the south, the first move lands as nothing more than ink on parchment. In the Red Keep, the air tastes of ash and old secrets when the Raven from Winterfell is read aloud. "A betrothal, your grace. Lord Rickard Stark's daughter, Lyanna, to Lord Robert Baratheon." The herald's voice trembles, not from the words themselves, but from the way the king's fingers tighten on the arms of the Iron Throne. Aerys II does not hear a wedding. He hears a warning. "Wolves and stags," he mutters, nails scraping rusted steel. "They mean to circle the dragon." His counselors trade careful glances. They knew that since Duskendale, every shadow has looked like treason to him, every whisper like a noose. Yet even now he hesitates. To move openly against Stark and Baratheon over a lawful match would look less like strength and more like fear, and fear is the one scent a king in this court must never admit. So he broods instead, demands more reports from the north, more names, more information, who feasted together, who swore what words, which bannermen smile too broadly at the thought of a stag crowned with ice and snow. The game to his mind is simple. Find the plot before it finds him. But the more he searches, the more plots he seems to see. While the father gnaws on phantoms, the son studies prophecy. Rhaegar stands in the cool quiet of the royal library, a roll of parchment in his hands and the weight of a dynasty on his shoulders. Elia sleeps in the Tower of the Hand with Rhaenys and infant Aegon. No Lyanna in his dreams, no vanished northern girl to turn rumor into wildfire. Only the old words about the prince that was promised, the song of ice and fire, in a realm that feels increasingly like a cask of wildfire hidden beneath the Red Keep. He realizes the danger runs in every direction. His father's madness above, the restive lords below, and between them a thin line of steel that is supposed to be him. That is why, in this world, his obsession bends a different way. No abduction at Harrenhal, no scandal in the Riverlands. Instead, quiet talks with Prince Lewin, with Jon Connington in exile. With those few at court, he dares to call allies about a great council. Men's about easing Aerys aside before the cask is kicked over. With Lyanna safely promised to Robert, the spark that burned the Seven Kingdoms never falls. No kidnapping, No Brandon riding to King's Landing in fury. No burning in the throne room while Jaime watches, helpless and horrified. On the surface, peace holds. But it is a brittle peace. The wildfire is still there. Duskendale's scars in Aerys's mind. Tywin's simmering insult after being passed over as hand. The Martells watching closely to see whether Elyah's children will be honored or quietly displaced. Each grievance is a slow-burning fuse snaking toward that same hidden cask. Ned, far away, will hear only fragments of this through ravens and travelers' tales. He knew that a single marriage would not cleanse a mad king or soothe old wounds. Yet if the war that should have crowned Robert never comes, what does that truly buy the realm? Time to heal. Or time for the dragon to fall later, harder, when Westeros is older, softer, and even less prepared for the true enemy gathering in the north. And if the first torch has been snuffed out, which fuse will reach the wildfire first? Lyanna the queen in waiting. Can a wolf tame a storm? If the first torch is snuffed out, then the next spark is a wedding torch. Storm's end, not a battlefield. Direwolf and crowned stag snapping together above a sea of banners. Rain threatening on the horizon like a half-remembered prophecy. But the yard is bright with silks and steel. Lyanna Stark rides through the gate in blue and white, cloak trimmed with gray fur despite the southern heat. In a small golden stag brooch pinned at her throat like a challenge. Robert is waiting in Baratheon black and gold, broad as a gatehouse, and already somehow half drunk on Arbor Red. "7 hells, Ned," he booms, clapping his friend on the back. "Your sister's going to make half my storm lords cry." Lyanna swings down from her horse before the groom can reach her. "If they weep my lord, it will be for your manners, not my face." For a heartbeat, the yard stills. Then Robert laughs, loud and easy, the sound rolling along the walls. He offers his arm. She takes it, not meekly, but as if accepting terms in a game whose rules she intends to rewrite. She had built an image of him from songs and stories. Robert the warrior, hammer in hand, laughing in the teeth of dragons. She knew that southern pageantry was hollow, and that the painted smiles of court could cut sharper than any sword. That is why she rides in Stark colors, why she keeps her father's words close. Winter is coming, even to a wedding feast. Robert's expectations are simpler. A beautiful northern bride, fierce and admiring, who will cheer his victories, warm his bed, and give him sons while he chases glory. In his mind, the marriage is another tourney he has already won. He must only drink, smile, and be himself. The first weeks are almost that simple. They hunt together. She rides hard enough that some storm lords mutter, "It is unseemly for a lady," and Robert only laughs and urges his horse faster. At night, the hall rings with his songs and her dry asides. When a drunk knight calls the north a frozen wasteland, Lyanna answers, "Frozen perhaps. But we remember our oaths when the wine runs out." Robert slams his cup down and roars approval. But he realizes quickly that the Lyanna of his dreams does not match the woman at his table. She notices when he slips away to brothels in the town below. She speaks plainly of it, not shrill, not weeping, simply cold and direct in that northern way that makes excuses shrivel. "Am I so poor a wife you must buy others?" "It's only sport," he snaps back, too fast. Short question, short answer. Then the silence between them stretches, a longer, heavier thing, as both hear what he has truly said, that his vows are already negotiable. Their arguments are passionate, not yet poisonous. Doors slam, then open again. He brings her a new mare, or a blade fine enough for a prince. She rides with him the next morning, but the hurt does not vanish. And it settles, like snow on a roof that seems sturdy until the thaw. At court, whether as queen in King's Landing or queen in waiting, while Aerys still clings to the Iron Throne, Lyanna changes the air itself. She rides the yard with the King's Guard, trades practice blows with younger knights, listens more to stable boys than to sycophants. She asks inconvenient questions about grain stores and unpaid soldiers. The Red Keep begins to feel, in small corners, a little like Winterfell. Northern men and storm lords gather around her with the ease of those who value plain speech. Some crownlanders, too, drift into her orbit. The more polished southern houses watch this with tight smiles. A queen who does not play the courtly game as they expect is a queen they cannot easily predict, And there, the central dilemma sharpens. Can her wolf blood and moral clarity steady Robert, turning his raw charisma into true power for good? Or does her refusal to accept his vices only teach him to hide them better, driving his drinking and infidelity into shadows where information is currency and enemies wait? He knew that loving a Stark would not be simple, but he believes, stubbornly, that love is enough. She believes, just as stubbornly, that honor is. Between those beliefs lies a colder, more brittle marriage, one that might hold under sunshine feasts. But what happens when the next storm breaks over king and kingdom? Ned Stark at court. The North learns the rules. You can almost feel the air change with him. A few years pass, and Ned Stark rides through the gates of King's Landing, not as a rebel, not as a reluctant hand, but as the king's quiet good brother. In Lyanna's Lord Protector, the same red walls loom, the same reek of heat and humanity presses in, yet the banners are Baratheon stags snapping beside Targaryen dragons instead of Lannister lions. It should feel safer, it does not. The capital seems to sweat around him. The cobbles bake, the crowds surge too close, and the Red Keep climbs the hill like some southern fortress trying to pretend it is a mountain. He remembers Winterfell's clean, cold, and open sky, and thinks, not for the first time, that men were not meant to live stacked atop one another like grain in a crowded silo. But he has come by choice. That is what unsettles him most. Inside the throne room, the game is already in motion. Courtiers flutter about Lyanna like bright, poisonous moths around a blue winter rose. "Your Grace," and the very image of Nymeria reborn, purrs one Reach Lord. "The North must be proud," another says, and Ned cannot quite tell whether it is compliment or warning. He realizes, watching their smiles, that every pretty word is also a question. How strong is House Stark? How firm is her hold on the king? Varys stands nearby, soft and silent, hands folded like a penitent septon. Littlefinger offers a mocking bow, eyes dancing as if he alone can see the strings on which this court dances. Ned studies them as they study Lyanna. A northern wolf has walked into a den of foxes and snakes, and for the first time he understands the wolf is not merely outnumbered. He is outthought if he refuses to learn. He thinks of his father and Brandon, alive back in Winterfell. Yet their tempers and honor had brought the realm to the edge of war over a single prince's slight. He knew that, in another turning of the wheel, fire might have answered fire, and their bones might have baked beneath this very hall. Honor had stayed their hand here only because cooler heads and better timing prevailed. That is why the memory chills him. Honor alone had not been enough. Chance had helped. Chance is no ally. A small exchange breaks his reverie. Across the hall, Varys leans to murmur something. Littlefinger's lips curl. He replies too quickly, and for a heartbeat, their eyes flick toward a Tyrell envoy and then to a Targaryen prince. Nothing is said aloud, yet something has clearly moved. A debt called in, a rumor placed. Ned feels it like a shift in wind before a snowstorm. Power here is not just in swords or titles. It is in knowing who whispers to whom, who shares wine, who pointedly does not. It is in the ledgers Littlefinger guards, in the secrets Varys hoards, in the quiet resentments of lords passed over for command. He must learn who owes what coin, who fears what scandal, which knight drinks too much, which septon preaches too loudly. If he looks away, someone else will look for him. That night, in the small godswood of the Red Keep, the trees are stunted and the heart tree is only painted, but he kneels all the same. Lyanna stands beside him, crown set a touch crooked, eyes still more wolf than queen. "I do not like this place, Ned," she mutters. "Too many eyes." "Then we will learn where they look," he answers. The words surprise him with their certainty. "I will learn their game, Lya, not because I like it, because the North cannot be blind while you sit at the center of the board." He lays his hand on the cold stone, feeling no gods in it at all, only his own resolve. Somewhere beyond the walls, men trade jokes and jests and little pieces of information, as if they are nothing. Ned Stark begins counting them as if they are swords. A realm. Without rebellion, the new balance of power. Information becomes a map long before it becomes a sword. As Ned begins to trace those lines in his mind, the shape of a different Westeros emerges, one where the realm never erupts, but never quite heals either. In the songs, Robert's rebellion redraws everything. The dragons fall, the stag takes the throne, and Lannister gold crowns it all in red and lions roar. But here, the Targaryens still sit the Iron Throne. There is no sack of King's Landing, and no ash in the streets, no butchered babes to whisper about in the dark. Houses that would have been burned or broken in the king's name remain intact. The old order survives, but it survives with new cracks. At the center of it stands a marriage bed instead of a battlefield. Winterfell and Storm's End, Wolf and Stag, are no longer just distant allies of convenience. They are kin. Robert boasts of it in the yard, slamming his drinking horn down and calling Ned good brother, loud enough for half the court to hear. Lyanna rolls her eyes and corrects his reachman boasts with northern memory. It seems like bluster, but Ned realizes that every jest is also a quiet reminder. The North and the Stormlands now speak with one voice when they choose to. That is why courtiers begin to measure distance to power, not only in steps to the Iron Throne, but in steps to Lyanna's solar. If Aerys still clings to the crown, she is the tempering influence he must reckon with. If Rhaegar rises as Prince Regent or King, he finds his small council table unexpectedly crowded. A Baratheon brother-in-law with a taste for command. A Stark who listens more than he speaks. A queen or princess who can carry northern grievances straight into the royal ear. Compared to that triangle, the other great houses feel displaced. The Lannisters remain rich, their minds untouched by war, but Cersei never becomes queen. Tywin sits in the west like a patient vulture, watching a court where his blood has no chair at the king's side. He knew that gold without a crown is only half a victory. The Tyrells keep the reach, their harvests and ships as plentiful as ever. Yet Marjorie has no grieving usurper to charm, or no boy king to ensnare. The Martells, by contrast, are quietly strongest. Elia and her children are unthreatened, their Targaryen tie unbroken, their long memory of southern wrongs merely postponed. Yet, even in peace, the game sharpens. Robert's pride bristles whenever Rhaegar takes command of the city's defenses or the royal host. Rhaegar's sense of destiny chafes at a brother-in-law who wins the yard and the tavern with the same easy smile. Who leads on campaign? Whose banners ride at the front in a tourney melee? These seem like small questions, until knights begin to choose sides by whose feast they attend. In those moments, Ned watches from the edge of the hall, hearing laughter as if it were armor clinking. He must weigh each jest, each glance, as carefully as any sword stroke. Lyanna soothes Robert with a look. He grounds Rhaegar with a word, but she cannot be in every room, so the tension between dragon and stag coils quietly, while the wolf pads between them, soft-footed and wary. And beneath it all, the old grievances do not vanish. They sink. Northern talk of southern arrogance does not stop. It simply grows more careful. Whispers of Aerys's cruelties, of wildfire and paranoia do not ignite a rebellion. They drift like unseen smoke through the Red Keep's stones. Regional lords still guard their autonomy, still resent distant decrees, but now they lack the cleansing fire of open war. So, what happens to a realm where the match is never struck? Does it mean the fire was averted, or that the fuel only grows drier, waiting for a spark no one expects? As Ned traces his invisible map, he cannot shake the thought that a kingdom spared one storm may be walking, eyes open, toward a far worse winter. Robert, Rhaegar, and the crown. Who actually rules? So if the storm never breaks and the dragons never fall, who actually rules this quieter, more dangerous Westeros? In the Red Keep, the answer seems simple at first. Aerys is still king in name, but age and madness have worn him thin. The small council speaks of rest and recuperation. In truth, they mean removal. Rhaegar steps into the space his father leaves behind, presiding over council, hearing petitions, with Elia at his side and their children named and recognized as heirs. The realm calls Aerys your grace, but when lords whisper of the future, it is Rhaegar they mean. Far away, another lord hears those whispers. Robert Baratheon, Lord of Storm's End, a hero of half the tourney fields from the Trident to Lannisport, now with a wolf for a wife. Without a rebellion to carve him into legend, his fame grows more slowly, but it grows all the same. He breaks lances, drains cups, wins hearts. He knew that he did not sit a throne, but every feast reminds him how many would cheer if he did. On paper, there is no game between them. Rhaegar is crown prince, then de facto king. Robert is a great bannerman, a loyal vassal, bound by marriage to the Starks and by old friendship to the Tullys and Arryns. Yet in council, the differences sharpen. Rhaegar speaks of prophecy, of balance, of grain stores and long winters. Robert speaks of ships, spears, and the simple rule that a king must be loved and feared in equal measure. He realizes again and again that he is expected to bow to a man who reads more than he rides. Lyanna sits at the hinge of that tension. She remembers Harrenhal, the prince's song, the crown of winter roses, the way the whole court held its breath. In this timeline, he never takes her away, never breaks betrothals, never burns the world for a vision only he can see. Yet the memory lingers like a half-forgotten tune. At feasts, when Rhaegar's dark eyes meet hers across the hall, she must look away first. Robert laughs and calls the prince bookish in private, but there is an edge to it that is not entirely jest. Ned watches all of this with the same quiet care he once gave to Snowfall on Greystone. Information becomes his shield. He listens when Lyanna speaks of Robert's pride, when Jon Arryn writes of discontent in the Stormlands, when northern merchants complain that royal decrees favor Dragonstone and King's Landing. He knew that peace was not the absence of conflict, but the art of keeping knives sheathed. That is why he begins to think in terms of leverage rather than outrage, of allies rather than honor alone. He must decide, each time tempers flare, how far can he back Robert without making Rhaegar see a rival instead of a friend? When a border dispute in the Dornish marches threatens to drag in Storm's End, whose side does the wolf take? The Storm Lord who trusts him, or the Dragon King who needs him? And when the first true crisis finally arrives, be it famine in the Crownlands, a riot in Flea Bottom, or whispers that some great lord plots treason, whose word will carry the day in the Red Keep? The crowned dragon with prophecy in his eyes, even the Storm Lord with half the realm's love, or the northern wolf who has learned to speak softly in the dark and be heard? The queen who never was, Cersei's new fate, Tywin's new game. But what happens in that same Red Keep if the lion never marries the stag at all? With Lyanna as Robert's wife, Cersei Lannister never wears a crown. There is no royal wedding feast with golden lions and crowned stags twined together. No moment for Tywin to look upon his daughter and see all his cold patience rewarded. Instead, he sits in Casterly Rock and he realizes something far more bitter. The North and Stormlands have closed ranks around the king without him. The game has moved on, and the lions were not invited. Tywin adjusts. He must. He knew that power in Westeros is rarely taken in battle alone, or it is sealed in marriage beds and small council chambers. Denied the Baratheon match, he turns his information and gold toward other prizes. Perhaps he courts Highgarden, dangling Cersei before a younger Tyrell son, while Olenna measures every Lannister promise for poison. Perhaps he sends quiet feelers to Sunspear, wondering if a Lannister Martell tie might leash Dorne instead of antagonizing it. In each version, Cersei is no longer the key to a throne, merely the key to a softer chair at someone else's high table. Her own fate bends with that calculation. She is still beautiful, still sharp, still convinced she was meant to stand beside a king, not a lord of middling strength. Yet Tywin, wary now, might marry her to a second son of a great house, someone impressive enough to polish the Lannister name, but not powerful enough to challenge his will. A Tully cousin at Riverrun, perhaps, or a lesser Tyrell with fields instead of fleets. On parchment, it seems wise. In her heart, it is an insult that never heals, so she schemes in smaller rooms. No Red Keep, no Iron Throne, no small council to bully. Instead, a provincial court where she can whisper in her husband's ear, where septons and stewards become the pieces she moves. The scale is reduced, but the venom is not. That is why the hall she rules, wherever it is, slowly curdles around her. Fewer levers, yes, but fewer eyes as well. Jaime's path twists with hers. Without the need to plant a twin beside the king, Tywin has no reason to surrender his heir to the Kingsguard. The White Cloak was a cage disguised as honor. Now, he keeps the boy close. Jaime remains the golden heir of Casterly Rock, drilled in ledgers as much as in swordplay, push toward a politically useful bride. The distance between him and Cersei grows not in feeling, but in miles. When they do meet at court, it is as guests, not as secret sovereigns. And in King's Landing itself, no Lannister queen, no Joffrey, no trio of golden-haired heirs for Varys to gossip about. The factions that cluster around the throne are Targaryen, Stark, Baratheon, dragons, wolves, and stags circling each other while the lions watch from the edge, rich, dangerous, but peripheral. Ned walks those halls and finds fewer crimson cloaks, more room for his own allies. Yet, pause here. Remove Cersei from the Iron Throne, and you do not remove Cersei from the world. Imagine her instead in Old Town, or at Highgarden, or brooding over some river keep, turning every slight into a lesson. A Cersei who never births the children who tear the realm apart, but who learns to poison a smaller court so completely that one day, its ruin spills outward. If the lioness never reaches the capital, does the capital truly become safer? Or does the chaos simply ripen elsewhere, waiting for the moment when dragons, wolves, and stags are too busy to notice? Children of the stag and wolf, the heirs who replace Jon Snow. Chaos ripens. And then it has to be born. Because while Cersei never fills the Red Keep with golden-haired shadows, Lyanna Stark does something far more dangerous to the game. She fills it with heirs. The first time the maesters place a dark-haired boy in Robert's arms, the king laughs so loudly the rafters shake. "Rickard!" he declares. Almost before Lyanna can speak, a name with roots in Winterfell, stamped now with a crowned stag. Their second child, a girl with Lyanna's gray eyes and Robert's smile, Lyanna names Liara. A third might follow, Brandon Baratheon perhaps, another bridge between a dead brother and a living dynasty. Each name is a choice, and Ned hears them like quiet oaths. The stag will not devour the wolf, they will share the same skin. He realizes, watching his sister in the capital, that Lyanna will never allow her children to be only southern. That is why, when the court whispers of tourneys and pageants, she is already planning long summers in the north. Rickard is fostered at Winterfell for a year, riding shaggy mountain ponies in the snow, while Septa Mordain grumbles about chilblains and ruined boots. Once Liara learns her letters in the Red Keep and her archery in the Wolf's Wood, loosing shafts at straw men, while the Heart Tree watches in red-eyed silence. Lyanna insists they learn the old gods as well as the Seven. She walks them through the godswood in King's Landing, thin and unimpressive beside Winterfell's, and tells them what real roots feel like. They pray in the sept for show and in the snow for truth. The children grow up speaking of weirwoods and storm gods in the same breath, as comfortable in a hall of kneeling lords as in a muddy training yard. They are, to the court, unsettling. To Ned, they seem like the future Westeros will need, if it is ever to be more than south against north. But there is one child who never draws breath in this world. No Jon Snow, no boy with a bastard's name and a prince's blood, are raised in the cold shadow of the wall. No hidden Targaryen Stark heir to stitch ice and fire together in one quiet, brooding person. The prophecy that speaks of a song of ice and fire has no obvious singer now. The notes are scattered among Baratheon tempers and Stark stubbornness, and the wall waits for a champion who does not come. He knew that removing Rhaegar from Lyanna's story would spare the realm a rebellion, but he did not see at first the hole it would tear in the long war no one is yet willing to name. Without Jon, the Watch loses its most improbable Lord Commander, the North its most unlikely unifier, Daenerys Targaryen her most necessary ally. When the dead begin to move, who must stand where he once stood? And in the South, the missing Baratheon Lannister brood means no Joffrey to order beheadings for sport, no Myrcella traded like a golden hostage, no Tommen to be molded by every hand at court. The specific cruelties that shattered the realm never occur. No purple wedding, no boy king shrieking for heads. Instead, any future storm gathers around Lyanna's children, and whatever Targaryen claims survive across the narrow sea. The question is no longer, are the royal children bastards, but which bloodline will the realm follow when dragons cast their shadow over a house of stags and wolves? Rickard Baratheon, half wolf, half storm, raised to respect the old gods yet crowned in the light of the Seven. Liara, smiling in silks, listening far more than she speaks. learning which bits of information move lords faster than swords. Each seems like a possible savior. Each could be something else entirely. Because in a world where the next generation carries antlers and direwolf eyes, the true danger is simple. One of them will grow up to stand against the darkness beyond the wall. And one of them might grow up to be the realm's quiet, smiling catastrophe. And when dragons finally return, which child will the fire choose, and which will it burn first? Ned's strategic pivot from honorable lord to reluctant operator. One child chosen by fire, one devoured by it. And in between them, there is the man who has to keep the board from tipping over. Ned Stark is no longer that young lord who rode south for his sister's wedding, with snow in his hair and trust in his heart. Years have passed. The king snores in Lyanna's bed. The dragons still sit the Iron Throne, and Ned sits at a heavy table in his chambers, surrounded not by friends, but by parchment. Wax seals from the north lie broken before him. Maester Luwin's neat hand speaks of food stores at Winterfell, of a poor harvest in the rills, of a quarrel between Karstark and Umber over a frozen river. Another letter carries rumors from the wall, more deserters than usual, strange lights in the far woods. None of it seems urgent to the southern court, but to Ned, each line is a stone in a wall he must keep standing. He shifts to a different pile. Reports from northern men in the city about Lannister gold buying friends among the gold cloaks. A note from a quiet steward in the royal kitchens, mentioning how often Pycelle dines with Casterly Rock's envoys. A careful summary of a feast where Rhaegar and Robert spoke too softly and drank too deeply, their smiles a little too tight. He had been so eager once, all so certain that oaths to king and kin would be enough, that he was a chicken in a snake's den, clucking while they coiled around him. Now he realizes there is no walking away from the game. Not when Lyanna sleeps beside the king. Not when their dark-haired children laugh in halls where dragons and lions have long memories. So, in the quiet, he makes a decision he never wished to make. He knew that honor alone will not shield the North, or Lyanna's line. That is why he must learn to measure words as carefully as he measures winter stores, to count allies like arrows, to think 3 moves ahead instead of 1. His goals crystallize as the candles burn low. Protect Lyanna's marriage from being turned into a weapon by those who would whisper of bastardy or madness. He keep the North strong enough that no king, dragon, or stag dares treat it as a granary to be emptied. Watch the slow, dangerous dance between Rhaegar and Robert, ready for the day admiration curdles into rivalry. And always, always keep a wary eye on any house that grows too rich from chaos, especially the one that wears crimson and gold. If the court insists on playing at pieces, then he will place his own. Robb fostered in the Vale with Jon Arryn, or perhaps at Storm's End with Stannis, where duty is iron and the boy will learn the weight of command. Sansa, with her mother's charm and her aunt's steel, promised one day to a prudent southern house that needs the North more than it can threaten it. He will invite Reachmen, Crownlanders, even cautious Riverlords to Winterfell, or to see that the North is no barren waste, but a power with deep roots and long memories. Quietly, he begins to weave something else. Trusted men-at-arms rotated through the Red Keep, always a few northern faces in the shadows of its corridors. Stewards and grooms who listen more than they speak, then send small, unremarkable letters home. A sworn sword at the docks who notes which ships bear Lannister crimson, which carry Dornish wine, which arrive at odd hours. It is not the kind of war he was raised to fight. There are no banners in this, no songs. Only information, patience, and the knowledge that a wrong word at the wrong time could set king against prince, lion against stag, dragon against wolf. At last, the candles gutter. Dawn seeps pale and thin through the narrow window. Ned buckles on his sword, and more out of habit than expectation, and steps into the corridor of the Red Keep. The stones feel different beneath his feet now. Every conversation ahead is both courtesy and test. Every smile might be a mask. He does not like this game. It seems too much like walking on a frozen lake, never sure where it will crack. But he walks it anyway. For the North, for Lyanna, for the children who might one day stand between fire and night. And as he turns toward the council chambers, he cannot help but wonder, when the first piece finally falls, will he be ready to move, or will someone else already be playing a deeper game than his? ally or threat. Ned's shortlist: Varys, Littlefinger, Barristan, Renly. You can almost see the pieces arranging themselves in his mind now. If this is a game, then Ned Stark finally starts laying out the board. Names come first. Faces, roles. He stands in the shadow gallery above the council chamber, listening to the echo of departing footsteps, and silently counts the men he might lean on. Varys the Spider, with his net of whispers. Peter Baelish, smiling over his ledgers. Sir Barristan Selmy, white cloak, bright as new snow. Renly Baratheon, all green and gold and easy laughter. Even Grand Moister Pyxell, and, if the gods are kind, some ambitious Tyrell cousins who dream of roses twined around a crowned stag. Each offers a different kind of power, information, coin, honor, popularity. He knew that, in Winterfell, a single trusted man was worth 10 clever strangers, but here in the king's court, the balance seems reversed. That is why he must choose carefully, and use each for what they are. Oh, not what he wishes them to be. Varys first. Always Varys. The eunuch moves like a shadow that learned to smile. His birds hear everything. Which lord quarrels with which servant saw which letter, which cup of wine was poured twice. Ned cannot ignore that. In a city where secrets rule, information is as sharp as Valyrian steel, and yet, Varys speaks of the realm with a softness that unsettles him. Too abstract, too bloodless. Ned thinks of Eris, of Rhaegar, of a Targaryen line that still exists because Lyanna lived and Robert never took the throne. Where does Varys' true loyalty lie in that tangle? To the king who is, or the king who might be? Peter is simpler and more dangerous, a fellow fosterling of the Vale, quick with a jest about those days. Let me help the North understand southern ways. All Lord Stark, Littlefinger would purr, as if chaos were a courtesy he offered guests. Ned has seen enough to understand. Peter thrives when the ground shifts, when debts are called in, when reputations crack, when no one is certain who holds what power. He realizes that any ladder Littlefinger builds is meant for himself alone. Such a man is worth watching, worth listening to, but not worth following. Barristan and Renly, though, they are different tools entirely. Sir Barristan is honor given flesh, close to king and prince both, his word carrying weight in the yard and the hall. Yet he is bound by vows, by the white cloak that makes him servant to the crown, not to any one lord. Ned knows he must ask him not for conspiracy, but for quiet counsel, precedents, oaths, the line between lawful command and treason. Renly is another matter. Younger, charming, politically attuned in a way Robert never cared to be. He understands the fashion of the court, the gossip of the streets, the mood of the Stormlords and Crownlanders who watch their king marry a wolf instead of a lion. With Renly, Ned sees a bridge to Robert's temper, to southern houses like the Tyrells, to the restless energy of a realm that wants to love its king but also loves a spectacle. So, he sketches his path, keep Varys talking, but never alone with his conscience. Treat Littlefinger as a ledger of other men's sins, not as a partner. Seek Barristan's judgment where honor and law collide. Let Renly carry the smiles and whispers that a northern lord cannot. And for his first move, dawn is not far off. Ned turns from the gallery with his decision hardening like ice. Before the king breaks his fast, but before Varys begins to spin and Peter begins to smile, Lord Eddard Stark will climb the steps of the White Sword Tower and ask to speak with Sir Barristan Selmy, alone. What truth exactly does he intend to test there? Conversations in shadows. Ned's quiet recruitment drive. He finds Barristan in the White Sword Tower as the bells of first light are still shivering through the city. The old knight buckling on his sword with the same care a septon might give to relics. Sir Barristan. Ned inclines his head first, as to a lord. I hope I do not intrude. You do, my lord, Selmy answers, but his mouth softens. Yet I will forgive a Stark who climbs so many steps before breakfast. That is rare diligence in King's Landing. Ned lets the dry barb stand. In the north, we say armor should be donned before the day's work. Here it seems cloaks and courtesies serve the same purpose. Aye, ceremony is a shield of its own. Barristan studies him. What shield do you seek? Wisdom. The word feels strange on his tongue, but he must wear it now. You have served 3 kings. How did they balance honor and necessity? Selmy's hands still. Some did not balance them at all. He speaks of Eris without naming him, of Rhaegar with a faint, almost wistful respect, of Robert as a warrior who has not yet learned that a king cannot simply smash every problem with a warhammer. As he talks, Ned listens, and he realizes this is information as sharp as any blade. And their legacies, Ned asks? What remains when the banners are furled? Only what men remember, Barristan says quietly, and what their children must bear. Ned lets Lyanna's name hang unspoken between them. My sister's household will bear much in time. If ever you see a shadow fall over it, over her, or the children she will give the king, I would have you tell me, not to break your vows, only to keep them broadly drawn. Barristan considers that careful line. He knew that this was not a northern blunt demand, but a southern shape to the same old truth. Protect your own. At last he nods. I saw your sister at Harrenhal. She rode as if the world were hers to outrun. I will not see that spirit snuffed. You have my word, Lord Stark. Later, in the palace gardens, Renly matches Ned's slower stride, green cloak bright against the hedges. You northern men dress as if every day were a hunt, Renly says. One might think the roses themselves planned rebellion. In Winterfell, we do not trust anything that blooms so easily, Ned replies. The banter is light, but that is why he chose Renly. Laughter is another kind of armor in this game. They speak of tourneys, of how the small folk cheer stags more loudly than dragons now, of which stormlords grumble that a Targaryen still sits the throne, while a Baratheon weds the wolfmaid instead. Ned asks simple questions. Renly gives quick answers. Then Ned expands them, turning gossip into patterns. Who complains most loudly in the halls and most softly in the corners? Ned asks. Renly brightens, flattered to be taken seriously. He names Reachmen, who angle toward Highgarden's favor, Crownlanders who drink with Lannister men-at-arms, nay a few riverlords who watch the king's temper as if it were spring floodwater. It seems everyone smiles at dragons in court, he finishes, but they carve stags on their cups. That is why Ned files each name away, not as friend or foe yet, but as a thread. Allies can be woven later. For now, he must simply know where the strands lie. When the sun has long since fallen, the small council chamber holds only candle stubs and Varys. My Lord Hand, the eunuch murmurs, though no one has yet said the title aloud. Your men near the neck will be pleased the bandits found other prey. Ned inclines his head. You have my thanks. What troubles you most about the realm's future, Master Varys? A generous question. Varys tilts his head. Famine in the Riverlands, perhaps. Pirates in the Stepstones. A few restless tongues in the Stormlands who wonder why a Baratheon is not king already. Nothing at all, if one prefers to sleep soundly. Yet you do not sleep, Ned says. Not when the realm dreams of dragons and stags at once. Varys offers half-truths, and Ned does not press for the other halves. He frames each query as concern for Lyanna's children, for the peace their marriage was meant to buy. Varys tests him with soft lies. Ned answers with hard silences. Even that is information. He leaves each man with his honor apparently intact and his tongue slightly looser. It seems a small thing, these conversations in shadows, but he realizes he is already spinning a web, however clumsily. Then the pattern breaks. In his solar, far from courtly whispers, Ned bends over parchment by a single candle. Maester Luwin, he writes, and I would have you keep a stricter accounting of every strange tale from beyond the wall. White shadows, dead things that walk, wildling musters. Send me each month what you learn. Kings, courts, and southern games may shift like sand, but the wall does not move. Ned knew that. And if the true danger comes from the cold and the dark, then all this careful play is only the opening move. Shifting currents, court crises, quiet maneuvers, and a realm on edge. Yet while his eyes turn north, the game in the south refuses to sit still. It begins with small ripples, a quarrel over tolls along the Trident, Frey men and Bracken men snarling over who may tax which barges, a trade spat between the Reach and the Stormlands. and in red wine merchants complaining that stormlords have seized casks for inspection. Rumors that some minor crown landlord, one of those forgettable banner houses near Duskendale, is quietly buying more spears than he has small folk to hold them. None of it is open rebellion, yet taken together, it seems less like noise and more like a pattern. In the council chamber, Ned watches. That is why he says little, at first. Littlefinger treats the river tolls as a jest, flicking figures across the table. If Lord Frey cannot count my Lord Hand, the crown will gladly do the sums for him, for a modest fee. The Reach Stormlands quarrel earns similar smiles. A few delayed cargoes, a few loans from the royal coffers, and tempers will cool. He realizes the numbers are not idle. Each dispute leaves a lord just short of coin, just grateful enough for Baelish's help. Power, disguised as paperwork. After the meeting, Ned falls into step beside Renly in the corridor. "Your master of coin is generous," Ned says. "Too generous. Lords who owe the crown will think they owe Baelish instead." Renly laughs, but there is an edge to it. "You northern men see traps in every snowdrift." "Snow shows the tracks," Ned answers. "You would do well to see who is circling the king." He knew that he cannot simply order Robert's brother to act, but he can plant doubt. He must. A quiet word here, a mention of how easily a man who holds the purse can starve a garrison there, and Renly begins to ask sharper questions in council when Peter speaks of loans. With Varys, the dance is different. One morning, a soft cough at his elbow, and a parchment appears. Northern and Vale bannermen bickering over grazing rights along a high, stony pass. Steel has not yet been drawn, but tempers are close. "Old blood, old grudges," Varys murmurs. "A single dead shepherd could become a dead lord, and then—" He flutters his fingers, as if scattering ravens. Ned does not wait. He sends letters north and to the Eyrie both, with small gifts of hounds and fine woolens, reminding each lord of past kindnesses and future caravans. At the same time, he quietly brokers a match, a younger son of a modest northern house to a Stormland knight's daughter, binding ice and storm with shared coin and pasture. One quarrel becomes an alliance. One possible skirmish becomes another thread in his web of allies. Then the currents shift harder. Aerys dies. Too late for some, too early for others, and Rhaegar takes the Iron Throne. The new king keeps Robert at court, but begins to strip him of command. A tourney where Robert once would have led the charge is now more fitting for Prince Viserys to preside over. A royal hunt is led by Rhaegar himself, with Robert placed decorously at his side rather than at the head. Robert drinks. Robert fumes. "He thinks me a blunt instrument," he growls to Ned in the Solar. "A hammer to hang on the wall now that the forging's done." "Then let him," Ned answers, choosing each word. "A hammer on the wall still breaks skulls when it is taken down. For now, your place is beside the king, not over him." He must soothe more than pride. Lyanna comes to him, eyes sharp, voice low. "If Rhaegar fears Robert, will he fear our children as well?" Ned speaks of oaths, all of how a dragon king needs the stag's antlers to hold the realm. He points to Rhaegar's courtesy to Lyanna, to the respect shown their young son in the yard. He does not mention how often he watches Rhaegar's hands when the king looks at the Baratheon heir. In council, Ned's tongue grows more disciplined. He lets Pycelle and Renly argue over tariffs until they are hoarse, then ends the matter with a single northern proverb about hungry men and full granaries that makes even Rhaegar pause. He stays silent when talk turns to pageants, but speaks, calm and firm, when Crownland's musters are discussed, steering the king away from rewarding that over-armed minor lord. Piece by piece, his fluency grows. He knew that honor alone would not shield those he loves, but that perhaps honor, guided by information and patience, it might yet shape the board. And just as he begins to feel the rhythm of this southern dance, more ravens from the wall arrive. Wildlings whisper of dead men that do not stay dead. Rangers vanish. Blue eyes are seen where no fire burns. The court laughs, ghost stories, northern fancies. Rhaegar smiles politely. Robert snorts ale through his nose. Only Ned studies each report as if it were a ledger of debts yet unpaid. Because if the dead are walking, then all these clever maneuvers are candles in a coming storm. And somewhere, beyond the wall, something is watching back. the war that never was, and the wars that replace it. If the dead are stirring in the snow, what does it matter that King's Landing never burned? Because in this timeline, it does not. There is no sack of the city. No mountain-smashing babes against walls and Tywin's colors. Rhaegar's children grow up within the Red Keep, not as whispers of ghosts across the narrow sea. Viserys and Daenerys never run barefoot through the streets of Braavos. They walk beneath dragon skulls in the throne room, princes and princess of a dynasty that still seems unshakable. The Iron Throne is not seized in a storm of steel. It is inherited, argued over, watched. Ned stands in that same hall one autumn court, listening as a silver-haired boy recites some dry point of law. He realizes how much is missing from this room. No Robert's rebellion, no shared mud and blood to bind Robert, Ned, and Jon Arryn into something harder than oaths. Robert calls him brother, but it is a word worn smooth by feasts, not battlefields. Their bond is a marriage contract and a crown, not the memory of nearly dying together at the Trident. He knew that in another life, he might have ridden south for vengeance, not for a wedding. That is why the courtesies feel thinner here. Jon Arryn is a father by marriage, not by war. Stannis respects Ned as the king's good father, not as a commander who held a line beside him. Even their quiet councils over maps and ledgers are different. More information, less confession. They speak of grain tallies and harbor fees, not of brothers buried and promises made in blood and smoke. Without the fire of rebellion, the realm settles into something like a long, brittle peace. Yet beneath it, a different game begins. Rhaegar's children by Elia stand before the court as the future of House Targaryen. Then Lyanna's dark-haired sons and daughters by Robert stand beside them as the future of House Baratheon and Stark. Who will the realm truly follow when the old king dies, the dragon born in the Red Keep, or the stag wolf beloved in the North and Stormlands? No banners are raised yet, but every lord counts which names draw more cheers in the yard. Tywin Lannister watches all of this from the shadows of the court, his smile thin. He never had his chance to prove loyalty by opening the gates to a victorious rebel king. There are no dead Targaryen babes to wash the stain of heiress from his ledger. The Lannisters remain rich, formidable, and, crucially, untrusted. Cersei is no queen. She is a high-born lady whose beauty has not bought her a crown, only a series of careful, frustrated offers. "We imagine," Renly murmurs to Ned one evening on the ramparts. "What trouble your sister spared us. No rebellion, no burnt cities, only the usual number of plots." "Only," Ned answers, watching torches move like fireflies along the city walls. He must admit, on the surface, the realm seems calmer. There is no War of the Five Kings, no riverlands torn apart by wolves and lions. The Greyjoys, seeing no drunken, negligent Robert to provoke, keep their longships close to home. Even Balon can count, and he sees a united crown, not a distracted one. But the peace has never been tested. No great war has burned away the pretense, shown who will truly stand with whom when steel is drawn. Dragon loyalists whisper of pure Targaryen succession. Stagwolf partisans talk, very quietly. Ends of a future where the king's children and the king's in-laws are the same house. Every minor skirmish at a border, every dispute over a royal charter, becomes a rehearsal for a larger conflict that has not yet found its name. Ned reads the northern reports again that night. Rangers gone, blue eyes in the dark. In a realm unscarred by rebellion, the lords still argue over which boy or girl will someday wear a crown of swords. And far to the north, something that does not care about crowns begins to move. If Westeros cannot even decide which living king to follow, who will they follow when the dead come marching? Daenerys, dragons, and a different song of ice and fire. Ned sets the raven aside and stares at the dying embers, monsters in the snow, quarrels in the south. And somewhere between those two truths, ain't a song that Rhaegar Targaryen once whispered to his harp. If there is no rebellion, that song sounds very different. Aerys lives longer here, watched more closely, but not yet overthrown. The dragons are gone, yet the dynasty still clings to power. In such a realm, Daenerys is not a frightened girl in a Braavosi man's house, counting every copper. She is a princess of the blood, perhaps born later, when the king is already gray, raised between the Red Keep and Dragonstone, her days filled with septas, history, and the quiet venom of court. She plays in Maegor's garden with Lyanna's dark-haired daughters when Robert comes south, not with Viserys' temper snapping at her heels. He knew that such a girl would not dream of home because she never lost it. She would dream of influence, of being more than a piece on someone else's board. But there is another possibility that gnaws at the edges of rumor. If Aerys grows more suspicious, if he forces Rhaella to drink tansy and moon tea after each stillbirth, Daenerys may simply never be born. The line thins. The game of succession tightens around Rhaegar, Rhaenys, and young Aegon like a noose of silk. Rhaegar, in this world, still hears prophecy. He still believes in the prince that was promised, in the song of ice and fire. Only now, his children live. Elia lives. The Stark-Baratheon alliance stands. He must decide what the song means when the realm is at peace, not on fire. He realizes that ice and fire need not be one person. It can be a joining. Aegon, silver-haired and bookish, betrothed to a wolf girl with Robert's laugh. A crown that binds dragon, stag, and direwolf together. Rhaegar plays his harp in the Red Keep solar and speaks softly of omens while Ned listens and weighs each word like a blade. Without Jon Snow hidden in the shadows of Winterfell, there is no secret heir who is both. There is only what men can build. Perhaps the union of ice and fire becomes a literal marriage contract, signed in ink instead of blood. Or perhaps it is Ned's long game, northern levees drilled, royal roads repaired, maesters tasked quietly with every scrap of information about dead things in the woods. An alliance of North and Crown, not in prophecy, but in preparation. Then, a pause. Imagine Daenerys again. Not the breaker of chains, but a girl in crimson and black, arguing with Lyanna's eldest over which knight fights in the tourney. No exile, no sail to call Drogo. No cities burned because they rang the wrong bells. Or would her sense of justice still burn so hot without years of humiliation? Or would her fire cool into something more like Cersei's, entitlement wrapped in courtesy? If dragons ever return in this timeline, they do not hatch in a funeral pyre on the Dothraki Sea. They are found in some forgotten vault under Dragonstone, or coaxed from stone eggs by Valyrian rites in the royal sept. That is why their first riders are not desperate exiles, but princes and princesses who already sit close to the Iron Throne. A more intact dynasty seems like strength when Ned looks south. More gold, more ships, more trained men. Yet he knew that walls of habit can be as deadly as any breach. A royal family that has never fled, never starved, may refuse to believe in anything that does not fit neatly into the stories they prefer. Was when the white shadows finally step over the line of old tales and into the forests of men, will a comfortable court listen to a northern lord who speaks of blue eyes in the dark? Or will they smile, speak of prophecy, and wait for a song to save them while the dead keep marching? The wall, the north, and the enemy. No one believes. In Ned reads that last letter twice. Blue eyes in the dark. Dead men that do not stay down. It sounds like a child's tale told too close to the fire, but he knew that too many tales in this game had turned out to be information no one wanted to hear. At the wall, very little has changed on the surface. The castles still crumble, one by one. The cells of the realm still empty northward, sending thieves and poachers to man the ancient stones. Nay, the watch still begs for coin at court and receives polite promises instead of real power. Yet, there is a thin, hard line of difference now. Letters from Winterfell that do not go unanswered, and a Lord of Winterfell who reads every raven from Castle Black, as if it were a report from a battlefield. He must admit it, without war, without the chaos that scatters lords and sons like dice, the wall remains a place of exile rather than a crucible. There is no brooding Stark bastard to take the black. No Jon Snow to rise from steward to Lord Commander, to treat with wildlings or with dragons that have not yet crossed any sea. In his place, the command falls to men like Bowen Marsh and old Dennis Mallister, dutiful but cautious, guardians of a crumbling order rather than founders of a new one. Ned feels that absence like a phantom limb. Yes, in another life, he might have had a son restless enough to choose the wall, or desperate enough to be pushed there. Here, his heirs are legitimate, needed, and carefully placed. Unless he deliberately sends a trusted bannerman north, The watch drifts on under leaders who see their duty, but not the storm beyond it. So he acts where he can. Grain is quietly shifted from the south of the north to its harsher edges. Small keeps drill twice as often. Maester Luwin is instructed to copy every strange report, every mention of white shadows, every wildling rumor that seems too consistent to ignore. If we are wrong, we are only better fed, Ned tells his captains. If we are right, we will wish we had done more. At court, the response is mixed. A stable realm means fewer burnt villages and fewer mad kings. But it also means a court grown soft on peace. Robert snorts at the letters, asking where the glory is in chasing phantoms through snowdrifts. Ratchaker listens more closely, intrigued by the echo of prophecy, yet even he seems to file it beside his songs and stars, something to ponder rather than something he must march toward. That is why the North begins to feel like a lone outpost of urgency. In canon, war tears down enough walls that Jon, Daenerys, and wildling chiefs can stand together against the dark. Here, the walls hold, the peace holds, and that very stability becomes a cage, keeping the realm's strength politely seated, while the true enemy gathers beyond sight. As the nights lengthen and the dead test the strength of forgotten wards, the king's greatest warriors argue over tourneys, tariffs, and titles. Only one northern wolf keeps pointing Southmen's eyes toward the wall, wondering how long he can hold their gaze before the snow itself begins to move. And when the first true winter storm breaks, will anyone in that warm, well-lit court believe that the wind is carrying more than snowflakes? A quieter doom. What this timeline reveals. About power and honor, on the surface, this Westeros looks like a quiet success story. No cities burning, no kings slain by their own guards, no rebellion sung by every half-drunk bard from Old Town to the Dreadfort. But as we step back from that warm, well-lit court, let's explore what has actually changed, and what has simply been delayed. The first divergences are almost deceptively simple. Lyanna never vanishes with Rhaegar, so there is no pretext for Robert's rebellion. May no pyre for Rickard Stark in the Red Keep, no mad king toppled by his own Kingsguard. Aerys dies in his bed, or is quietly eased aside by Rhaegar, not dragged from the Iron Throne in a sack of his own blood. There is no Lannister queen, no golden lion coiled around the crowned stag. Cersei remains in the rock, Jaime in white armor far from the king's marriage bed. There is no Jon Snow in the snow at all, no hidden prince raised as a bastard, no walking contradiction of duty and love forged in the cold of Winterfell. Instead, the realm gains something far more conventional, a stable Targaryen dynasty and a formidable Stark Baratheon bloc. Lyanna's sons and daughters stand as bridges between North, Stormlands, and Crown. The game seems calmer, the board more orderly. Lords grumble over tariffs and tourneys instead of choosing sides in open war. Yet, that is why this timeline feels so quietly dangerous. It has never been tested by fire. In canon, Ned Stark comes south like a man walking into a pit with his eyes half closed. Here, he arrives earlier, and he realizes that information is as sharp as any sword. As the king's good brother, he must learn the court, cultivate allies, and trade small concessions to shield the North. He knew that honor alone would not keep his sister safe. That lesson lingers. He becomes a better player, placing northern men in key posts, listening when Varys' little birds chirp, even tolerating the dull necessities of coin and grain. Yet every compromise that keeps the peace also lulls the realm. When Ned urges watchfulness about the wall, it sounds less like prophecy and more like a northern habit, easily smiled away over arbor gold. Lyanna, meanwhile, lives to see the cost of her own survival. She grows into a political force at Robert's side, a queen who can glare a drunken king back to his feet and drag him, however unwillingly, toward duty. Perhaps she softens his worst excesses. Perhaps she merely delays them. Either way, her presence keeps countless banners from ever being called, countless sons from dying on trampled fields. Yet by averting that storm, she also erases the strange chain of chances that forged the few who would stand against the dead. No Jon at the wall, no broken Theon, no Knight of Flowers hardened by war, no Dragon Queen tempered in exile. That becomes the heart of this quieter doom. Sometimes the horrors of one age forge the tools needed to survive the next. A Westeros without rebellion is richer, fuller, and softer, but also more fragile, less willing to believe in anything beyond the next harvest or the next tourney. When the dead finally come, they face a realm that still trusts in walls and names, not in sacrifice. So, if you could choose between a world scarred by open war but accidentally prepared for the worst, and a world that feels safer yet blind to the coming night, which would you call the better fate for Westeros? And for the people Ned loves? Closing the loop, one wedding, infinite wars, CTA. And that is the knife edge this world balances on. One less war, one less burning city, and yet the same long night still marching south, unseen. So that's the world where Lyanna Stark actually marries Robert Baratheon. No Tower of Joy, no rebellion, no sack of King's Landing, and a very different kind of danger waiting in the snow. The songs remember a tourney and a wedding, not a prince stealing a wolf maid. The bards praise a laughing young king with a northern bride, instead of a usurper with a crown bought in blood. In this game, the pieces fall very differently. Cersei never wears a crown. She is a daughter of Casterly Rock bartered elsewhere, her sharp tongue wasted on some lesser lord who thinks he has tamed a lioness. The Lannisters are sidelined, their gold no longer the spine of the court. Tywin waits, watches, and grinds his teeth as the Targaryens still sit the Iron Throne, their banners unburnt, after their dragons only painted on shields instead of roaring in the streets. Robert hunts, drinks, and boasts, but he has Lyanna at his side and Stark brothers at his table. Ned moves through the Red Keep as a quiet political player, not a doomed hand. He realizes that information is as sharp as any sword. He knew that he must trade a little of his old certainty for new kinds of power. That is why he listens more, speaks less, and lets others underestimate him. Lyanna herself becomes queen in all but name, the only one who can drag Robert from the wine to the council, the only one who can look Rhaegar in the eye and ask what, precisely, his prophecies demand. The realm trades wildfire and dragonfire for slow, creeping winter. No Blackwater, no sack of King's Landing, but also no hard-forged alliances born in fire. No scattered exiles like Daenerys hardened in the east. Honor and information pull against each other until the very end. Ned's willingness to play the game buys decades of peace, keeps children alive who once died in alleys and throne rooms. Yet, even his best intentions cannot touch the cold that gathers beyond the wall. He knew that the board is bigger than men and their crowns, but he cannot yet see all its edges. So, in this timeline, which single choice matters most to you? Lyanna's quiet acceptance beneath the heart tree, Ned's political awakening in the shadows of the Red Keep, Rhaegar's restraint, keeping his dragon's passion in check for the sake of a fragile peace? Or does it all hinge on someone like Cersei being sent to a different marriage bed? Or a Daenerys raised in the Red Keep instead of across the narrow sea? Was, let's explore that together. Tell me in the comments how you think this Lyanna Robert world truly plays out. Does Jon Snow exist at all, or does the North gain something far more dangerous? Like the video if you enjoyed walking this road not taken, and subscribe for more deep dive what-ifs in Westeros. Next time, we may ask, what if Cersei married a Tyrell instead? And the roses wrap their thorns around the Iron Throne. Change one promise in a godswood, and the whole game shifts. The question is, did we save Westeros from its fire, or did we just leave it alone in the dark?